Hi, and welcome to our digital roundtable on specialty schools in Cleveland. I'm James Krause. I'll be moderating this discussion with some of the key players here involved with these schools. Joining us is Drew Ferguson, who's the executive director at Argonaut, Brian McDonald, who's the executive director of the Joan C. Foundation, Michelle Perez, who's the principal of the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine, Ricardo Franklin Sr., who's the head of school at the Cleveland School of the Arts, and Tim Jones, who's principal at the Davis Aerospace and Marine High School. So these are schools that focus on a particular discipline to foster skills and interest in a profession or career track. And I think probably the best way to understand these schools is to hear about them directly. Ricardo, could we start with you and just tell us a little bit about the mission and the history of the Cleveland School of the Arts?
Yeah, so CSA has been around now for a little over 40 years. We celebrated our 40th year anniversary just last year. And the mission of CSA has always been to provide students in Northeast Ohio with the opportunity to engage in high quality arts education. The arts come in the form of creative and performing arts. So there are 7 different academic paths for students to choose from, and those pathways lead to careers and the immediate access to potential careers, conservatories, and four-year colleges. Done a really good job just putting some students over the years in some very lucrative opportunities, whether it's on Broadway, whether it's in the music industry, dance, so be it. So it's done a really good job over the last 40 years.
Tim, do you want to tell us about the Davis Aerospace and Marine High School?
Yeah, hi, thank you. My name's Tim Jones. I'm the principal of Davis Aerospace and Maritime High School. Davis Aerospace and Maritime High School was conceived by a company, a nonprofit called Argonaut, formerly known as FASTAR. And the CEO of Argonaut, Drew Ferguson, who's joining us today, brought the concept of the school to the CMSD in 2012, and then worked with Eric Gordon and the startup team at that time, and we opened our doors in 2017. We work with Argonaut to provide authentic opportunities for kids linked to both of those fields, aerospace, aviation, and then we also have an engineering thread as well. So when students come here in 9th and 10th grade, they take some broad classes exposing them to both of those themes, a maritime science class, an aviation science class, along with some grade level, maritime training and engineering training experiences. And by the time they hit 10th grade, they choose one of 4 pathways: aviation technology, aviation operations, marine technology, or maritime operations. And depending on the path that they choose, there are additional courses that they can take or that they will take at the school. There are some flex credit options. There's a high amount of student employment and some certification that happens. And the purpose of the school is to provide, to provide a lever for teaching regular content and math and science in an exciting way so that students' academic performance is improved, but also to prepare students for careers in futures in aviation or maritime. We have a Great Lake right here and 2 airports, and those are 2 of the major areas of our local economy. Argonaut owns a few vessels and owns an airplane and has a flight school and has multiple employees that train our students and work here in the school. Many of our classes are co-taught by Davis teachers and Argonaut teachers. So there's sort of a progression of in school and out of school, and advanced opportunities for students as they develop their pathway.
Let's move over to Michelle. And Michelle, you want to tell us about the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine?
The Cleveland School of Science and Medicine was founded in 2006. It really was a community partnership that created the school. We have a board of trustees that exists today, and it was a board that came together. It comprised of private sector individuals, public sector individuals, educators, the school district itself. So it was about a 20-person board. And the purpose behind creating the school was really to develop a pipeline of students that would be academically prepared for careers, particularly in medicine. So at the time that the school was founded, there had not been a CMSD graduate to enter the Case Medical School in like years. And so the folks that were interested in creating the school really wanted that to be a focus. And that's where the Joan C. Foundation ties into the theme of the school and the history of our school. So at its inception, that was really the goal, was to provide a really rigorous and safe environment for learning where and by safe, I mean like promoting positive school culture and a love for academics. And so we have been an AP at Advanced Placement Model School for many years. We did in 2018 we found that, a lot of our students were coming to us with goals of becoming doctors, which was sort of the vision of the school in the first place. But we realized that, that is a very rigorous career and it takes a lot to get there. And by the time our students were graduating in the 12th grade, a lot of them had decided that, a medical career specifically was not going to be for them. So in 2018, through a strategic planning process that we engaged in with our faculty and the board, we also developed 4 different pathways. So we continue to have professional medicine as our primary pathway. It's the one that most of our 9th graders are really attracted to. Those are the students that have the goal of becoming, a direct care individual. But then we added a public health and policy pathway that has become really popular. A lot of students have an interest in law and advocating for healthcare issues. And so we are still tying into the science and medicine theme, but I'm trying to tap into the interests of our scholars in that way. We added a biomedical engineering and AI pathway, which has been small, but increasingly growing, just like AI. So we have a computer science for all philosophy at Science and Medicine. So all of our 9th graders are taking computer science principles courses. And then with that pathway, we're trying to then get them to go into programming and be prepared for careers for the future in technology. And then we have a scientific research pathway as well. And that has a really strong partnership, for instance, with the Cleveland Clinic. Within that pathway, we have, and this is just an example of some of the community partnerships we have. We have students who go over to the Learner Research Center. They engage in a summer internship program. They actually work hand in hand with doctors and research assistants, and they're paid to have that experience. And so we do have, it's a smaller pathway, but we do have students who also are interested in going, straight into scientific research. So really the goal has just been to provide the type of educational environment that a student needs in order to be successful when they are planning for a rigorous college experience.
It's a great example of, we have the arts, we have engineering, we have medicine. It's really a great spectrum. I want to talk a little bit about kind of the ecosystem around these schools and the foundations that support them. And I'd love to hear from, Brian and Drew about, your organizations, and then also kind of more broadly, what other organizations support these schools, what kind of partnership that is. I think Michelle alluded to some of that. Brian, do you want to start off with that one?
Sure, thanks. So I'm Brian McDonald. I'm the executive director of the Joan C. Charitable Foundation. And the Joan C. Charitable Foundation, the mission is to provide medical education for students in medical professional shortage areas. It's a federally designated HPSA, health professional shortage areas. And one of the troubling things about Cleveland and a lot of urban centers and a lot of areas around really good, prestigious medical schools is that they're surrounded by health profession shortage areas. And they're designated, I said, by federal criteria. And Cleveland is one of those. So when I started in 2008 and 9 to kind of research where we might partner, I started looking at a lot of these areas. And one of the criteria that we had in the foundation was we really wanted to engage with high school students. And in order to do that, I started really looking for sort of like medically oriented curriculum at different high schools. And there were a few. There was one in Oregon. There was one, I believe, up in Detroit, maybe Minnesota. But Cleveland, in 2000, founded the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine, and the curriculum matched up perfectly with what we wanted to do. They had already developed a lot of these partnerships. There was a deep partnership with Case Medical School of Medicine, with the clinic, with university hospitals. I mean, just the location in University Circle, the proximity to those resources is critical for these types of relationships and partnerships to be sustained, because the back and forth, just the sharing of intelligence and knowledge and resources is right across the street. So that was when we decided to engage with the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine and Case Medical. And we developed our scholarship program around this school. And really, without the school and without those relationships and those partnerships and that dedicated interaction, the Edwards Foundation really wouldn't have been able to achieve anywhere close to the success that we've achieved to this point.
Great. Drew, do you want to just talk about Argonaut and then also maybe a little bit more about the different partnerships that support the mission of Davis?
All right, thank you. So Argonaut was actually created specifically to design, launch, and protect the Davis Aerospace Maritime High School. Starting in 2010, I'd come out of the air medical industry. So I'd worked with Metro Health, University Hospitals in their aviation programs through their life flight programs. And I'd studied kind of the history of the Cleveland schools. I'd been doing some tutoring in the city and was looking at the history of the old aviation high school and what worked and what didn't. So what we did is designed a school. Like Brian said, we looked to other cities that were leveraging their local resources and industries. I'd gone out to New York City, spent some time there, out to Seattle, Detroit, Toledo, and looked at similar schools and identified who the partners were in Cleveland and how to make the program successful. Again, started this in 2010. It took to about 2012 when we had our first conversation, 2015 when we really started to gain traction and start the school. You know, a lot of it started out of frustration. I found that many of my colleagues and industry partners would engage students through what I called one-off experiences. They would bring their industry to a school for one day, get a kid excited, and then disappear and not show up, and then wonder why that kid doesn't come back 5 years later. And so we really designed it around that concept is we need to introduce aerospace and maritime through a highly immersive, consistent model. The experiences of aerospace and maritime are exciting. Every kid flies, every kid swims, every kid operates a boat. And once we ignite that spark and we keep that flame going, we explore what opportunities are available in those industries, preparing our kids for real world engagement, getting them the licensing and credentials that they need to be successful in their post-secondary pathways, and then supporting them in that post-secondary pursuit. A lot of folks kind of hand off and then, check in with the kids occasionally, but we're finding that, there's a lot of difficulties and challenges in the college environment, particularly in aviation, because in addition to the cost of college and university, you have additional costs for flight training and licensing. So we really get our kids set up and then try to support them all the way through their career, really developing an alumni network. The partnerships are key. One of the issues that we found was many of the partners we approached initially said we've supported the district before and it's just something we're not really interested. We're looking for more direct programming. Our primary partners in the launch of this have been the Port of Cleveland, United Airlines, FlexJet, and Interlake Maritime Services. And the agreement here with these folks and the ways we got them to really engage in a Cleveland public school was telling them that they were directly supporting the school. The avenue by which they were supporting the school was through Argonaut. And in their giving, they were also on the board. So not only did they give the money, but they directly oversee how that money is spent. The checks do not go to anyone else other than Argonaut, and Argonaut's expenses are 100% around the operation of Davis. So we've gotten not only commitment of finances, but longevity in those partnerships. They understand that these things don't happen overnight, and we ask for a minimum of 5, preferably 10-year commitments on not a particular funding amount, but sustainable funding and commitment to participating in the process.
Well, I want to just touch on something that you kind of drew out there, which is, why are these specialty schools important? Both in terms of the focus that they have, and then also being in the locations where they are, and being a building itself. Why do we think it's important that these specialty schools exist as opposed to a program within the system that kind of focuses on these different specialties?
Just speaking directly to the specialty and specificity of Cleveland School of the Arts, the name itself, it identifies as a school that is unlike others. So when we think about the arts in general, as I mentioned before, so there's 7 different majors, if you will, 10 different tracks for students to choose from. So there's, there's 3 different, there's orchestra, vocal, and a band. There's a theater, there's a creative writing, there's visual arts that then gets into fashion, digital art, ceramics. And when we think about Cleveland and the richness of art expertise, art institutions, and art supporters in Northeast Ohio, it's booming. And the location of Cleveland School of the Arts, we're set right in the middle of University Circle. So folks who visit the University Circle area immediately notice all of the art opportunities from the Cleveland Institute of Art, the Cleveland Art Museum, Natural History Museum, Severance Hall, where the Cleveland Orchestra. And so when we think about Cleveland School of the Arts and the specialty and the specificity, we're able to tap into a lot of these different resources, these people, the institutions and their outreach components. So when our orchestra receives individual private lessons from the Cleveland Orchestra, which has been for years rated as one of the #1 orchestras in the world, that's a resource that is invaluable, and that's an in-kind contribution, right? Before we talk about, the dollars. When we think about our theater department, it's been on record that Northeast Ohio, Cleveland specifically, has the second largest theater district in America, only behind Broadway, and that's to the fingertips and the use of our students at CSA. Once again, in-kind contributions. But when we look at the partnerships that we have with some of the different funding sources throughout Northeast Ohio, they're specifically tailored towards art and art education. So we bottle all of that up into a space where CSA has become the arts educational hub of Northeast Ohio, where many of those places that I spoke on have outreach opportunities for youth. The goal is to have those youth from an early age be put in a position where their mind is saying, hey, I want to go to Cleveland School of the Arts High School. Then in turn, our job as the high school is to take those students, prepare them to go into either the workforce or directly into some of the higher learning opportunities, which are literally right across the street, like Case Western Reserve University, or down the street at Cleveland Institute of Art. So the work of art is not bound necessarily by age. It's not bound by degree. So many of our students, before they even leave CSA, they've had opportunities to partake in entrepreneurial opportunities. So students are engaging in booking gigs, booking shows. They know how to do those things prior to them leaving CSA. And that's all a part of us being able to galvanize these relationships, engage in the community outreaches of other institutions and organizations, and use our in-house curriculum and planning to put them in the best place possible. To lose a space like Cleveland School of the Arts is really taking 400 and 420 kids and removing an opportunity to follow their dreams, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Before they get to a college or a conservatory, they're able to get a lot of those experiences right now.
Ricardo just talked about the proximity to these other institutions. Michelle, could you just talk a little bit about how that's important in terms of just being walking distance to places like the clinic, UH, some of the other partnerships that you mentioned, the Case Medical School? How important is that walking distance to students?
Yeah, for the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine, it's very important. So I talked a little bit about the RISE partnership, which was actually a collaboration between one of our board members and one of our faculty members it's in its like 8th year. The fact that students, it is a summer program, but the fact that students can do all of the application process. In a couple of weeks, we'll have some individuals from Learner coming over to present, just walking over to present to our 10th and 11th graders about next summer's opportunity. And then in the summer, when the kids are doing the internship program, they can park in our parking lot. They're able to head over there. We have a partnership with the clinic around the use of AI technology that we were able to obtain through a grant, and our biomedical science pathway teacher is able to work directly with a doctor using a shared curriculum that is being used at Learner to teach medical students. And we are able to use that software. The doctor is able to, he was literally in our building last week just doing some troubleshooting with our Oculi devices. The students walk over to Case Western Reserve University on a regular basis. We have a program called the Robbins Bridge program that provides a very specific lecture series in a couple of different medical areas. And we are able to easily get to the medical school. We're able to get to case. And then in the same way, case students are regularly in our building. So we right now are engaged in we call it the case senior writing workshop program. So we have medical students come over and they help our seniors prepare their essays for their college application. It's a 8-week series, I believe, and there's like 12 students that come over and meet with our students in small groups. There's all kinds of examples of that. We have a lunch tutoring group that is about to start up. Again, these are case students, but this time undergrads. It's called the Med Search program. And they're coming over, and during lunchtime, right, when they're free and our students have a little extra time, they'll be doing some lunch tutoring. It's just university hospitals, also within walking distance. There's a lot of summer programming. The Scholars program, a lot of our students engage in that opportunity. So yeah, I would say it's incredibly important that we're right here in the center of these healthcare institutions, and also Case and Case Medical School. It's been an incredible experience.
Davis Aerospace and Maritime High School is located downtown on East 13th Street, sort of in walking distance from the Galleria, walking distance from East 9th Street Port. But one strategy of the comprehensive high schools that are out there is to offer a breadth of opportunities to kids. And you can try your hand at band, you can try your hand at sports. Anything that you might want to experience, you have all in one place. The strategy at Davis and the source of success here is that we're taking a depth over breadth approach. So we have a theme of aerospace and maritime, and we go deep there. So the result is that we get kids from all across Northeast Ohio, like-minded students from a variety of backgrounds. We have, the majority of our students come from Cleveland, but we have students from, as far away as Akron, Berea, Shaker Heights, Bay Village, East Cleveland, really, really all over the place, coming down to Davis specifically for the theme that we have here. And when the students have a common interest and a common thread and a passion for aviation and maritime, that's what builds the culture here. And it's cool to like those classes, and it's cool to get excited about that stuff. And it really serves to elevate the experience and elevate the school culture and galvanize the student body and the staff around the specific theme. We are located downtown. I am looking out the window right now. I can see Lake Erie. It's a couple of blocks away, and we can see the Burke Lakefront Airport. So when our students are out on the water during class, their classmates can literally see them from the window. When our students are flying, we can watch them do so from the school. We have, as Drew mentioned, because of our partnerships, we have a number of opportunities for the students. So, for example, Argonaut contracts with the city for a river cleanup program, a waterways management program, and our students operate boats and up and down the Cuyahoga River, and they pull out logs and they pull out garbage. Each year they pull out around 100 tons of trash or debris from the rivers, keeping the waterways safe. If a ship crashes into one of those or there's an accident, that's a heavy cost. So our kids get to operate those vessels, and we're close enough to the river because we're downtown that our maritime students can leave during the day and go operate those boats during their maritime class and come back. We're close enough to the airport that our aviation students during the day can go down to the Argonaut hangar, when there's engine maintenance being done, and observe it firsthand or participate to the extent that they're able to firsthand during the school day as part of school. And, a school that's fully dedicated to that means that everyone here is excited about that and it's elevated. And then our location where we're at means that we can actually do it in real time when it happens. A lot of those things, we get calls. There's opportunities when a ship is coming in, and we might, and it may just so work out that few students can get on a ship at the port here, ride it up the river, and get off down the river an hour and a half later, and then come back to school. Those are often things that need to be facilitated in real time, maybe the night before or the morning of, and our location allows us to take advantage of those things. I think, conveniently or strategically, however you want to look at it, when we take the depth over breadth approach to our school theme, the result is actually a large breadth of opportunities within that theme. So, a few examples, and I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to speak to more throughout the conversation. But about 25% of our returning students this year, we had some seniors graduate, and the kids the 9th, 10th, and 11th graders who were returning, about 25% of them were employed over the summer in some sort of school facilitated opportunity, paid opportunity. We have a boat building program as part of the school that is linked to that is affiliated with a carpenters union. We have students who work on docks, managing boats as they pull up to the docks. We have students that fly drones and participate with the Cleveland Water Alliance doing environmental studies. We have students who work at local water sports companies affiliated with the school, learning business management. It's not even necessarily operating boats, but it's the turning a profit on renting kayaks and paddleboards. So I think that becomes possible when you have a school that's wholly dedicated to one purpose. And we have a partner like Argonaut and a partnership like that doesn't exist the same way as part of a larger program. Argonaut is fully committed to the school. They're not distracted by any other initiatives. The school is fully committed to the theme, and we're not distracted by any other opportunities. And therefore, what we focus on here can really be deep.
Just to play devil's advocate here, when we hear about these schools, some might say, well, hey, in the context of public education, aren't we diverting resources and talents away from the rest of the system? How do we address that, and how do we speak to that concern?
Sure. I mean, that's an issue I think that we wrestle with, right? I mean, I completely understand that because we are specialty schools, because we are criteria schools, I mean, at least the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine is an admissions process. Because of the rigor and just the expectations of the school. And it's something that I think about is we've had a lot of success with a lot of our students beyond just the Edwards Foundation, right? We have Edwards scholars, one of whom is now on faculty at UPenn Med School. But there are other students out of the CSSM that are physicians, that are PhDs, that are attorneys, that have gone on to really great success all over the country. But I guess a question is, would those students have had similar success at any comprehensive school, at a neighborhood school? Or did they require that level of depth, which also yields, I think you put it beautifully, Tim, breadth of opportunities? Did they require that to achieve that success? And I don't know the answer to that. I can see both sides, because we are taking some of these students with real talent. And I think all students have talent. It just needs to be developed, fostered, and they need to be given adequate opportunity and access to resources. I really believe that. I think that all students can do excellent things. And so the question is, are we robbing comprehensive schools of talent? And I don't know the answer to that. I know that what we're doing at Cleveland School of Science and Medicine succeeds brilliantly for our students. It sounds like it works at Davis, and it sounds like it works at CSA, but I think that is a real issue. That's my perspective. I'd like to hear everybody else's.
I can share on that topic, Brian. So I feel pretty passionately about this. I was a teacher in Cleveland for 15 years before I became a principal. I was a teacher in a comprehensive high school, both at Rhodes and before that at East, when it was a high school, before it was a professional center. And I completely agree that every student needs a high quality education. We need opportunities. Everybody has to have what they need to grow as a scholar. And I will say that as an educator and being in the classroom when science and medicine was opened, I did feel like, what's going on? Like here's this school that's going to take, probably my top students. And I did see some of my top students transfer over to one of the John Hay programs. But I guess what I think about a lot as also a resident of the city of Cleveland is that, if you're a wealthy individual in the city, you have a lot of options when it comes to education, and there are private school programs that you can choose from if you want your child to sort of have a different type experience, like an elite type experience. And I don't think I really understood what that meant until I arrived at this school, and I see what it's like for largely Black and brown students. I mean, that's who we're serving here, to come together around a really rigorous curriculum and have an experience that, quite frankly, I think rivals something like St. Ignatius or Beaumont. And I say that because we have a National Merit Scholar semifinalist. We're the only school in Cleveland to have that. We have a partnership with University of North Carolina, the Moorhead Kane program. We're the only other school besides St. Ignatius that offers that scholarship opportunity. We have the partnership with the Joan C. Edwards Foundation that offers this amazing undergrad and medical school scholarship. And it has been primarily students from the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine who have obtained that, not exclusively, but primarily. So I think there is something to be said for bringing like-minded, just like Tim was saying in a different way, bringing like-minded students together. And really the same thing that Ricardo is saying with students who have this affinity for the arts. I think students who are intellectually talented, who have a strong desire to work hard and to reach for really challenging careers should have a space where they're able to do that. And I think maybe it does cost a little bit. I think maybe it does, although we've been able to maintain a 400 person school for 20 years or close to it. And we are even willing to grow the program a little bit if we can. I think that it's worth it because there are a number, just even the 12 scholars that we have in the Joan C. Edwards pipeline program that will eventually be doctors, some of whom already are doctors. And that doesn't even include the students who have gone to Ohio State, who have gone to other colleges and universities to become medical professionals. That's 12 more than we had in 2006 when we hadn't had any for 30 years. So I just think that there's a lot of specific success that's coming from these types of programs that can't really be quantified if we're just talking about dollars and numbers. It's deeper than that. So yeah, I feel really strongly that it's worth the investment. If it does cost more, it's worth it.
Yeah, if I might just add one thing, it seems like it allows you the structure to create a culture.
Absolutely.
I would like to add on to that, Michelle. When we think about, there's a lot of components to this, and there's a lot of ideas of what the resource is that might be taken away or stretched thin. In regards to arts and art specific elements, when we look at the resource as it is a teacher in the district, there's a shortage. There are some schools that have 0 art teachers, and the specificity of like a dance teacher or an orchestra director, right? Those don't exist in every school. While that is the goal, they don't. So the idea of having one school, high school, if you would, that does employ at least one of these very specific targeted jobs, it gives those students the opportunity to ensure that they're going to get that really, really high quality opportunity, or the opportunity to learn at a really high level from this particular individual. The thing that I think that we look at is, okay, then the resource of the dollar, what it really takes to operate any of our programs, the idea that every school in the district can have a science and medicine or Argonaut program, it's not there. So let's take this opportunity to do one thing really, really well at a very specific school and give kids these opportunities that they wouldn't get at even close to the level that they're going to get at one of these specialty schools, because the product is going to be so watered down. The level of dedication from the educator may not be there, because the level of focus that they can place is not there, because there's so many other compelling factors that they have to contribute to their daily work. Now, that's not to say that challenges don't exist in any of our buildings. We're still working with humans, right? We're still working with kids, right? Michelle said students, they can be kids at times, but we want to give them the opportunity to be successful in a way that, if these programs existed in other schools, it would be extremely watered down, and students would walk away with not having the same heart and the same drive to complete or finish that program at a higher level. And these schools aren't for everyone, right? While we're criteria based and CSA is an audition based school, students will come and they'll see, hey man, this is harder than I thought. So let me go to another school where I can still take an art class, but it's not, the absolute focus of what my studies are at this other school.
Yeah, I want to jump back to there was a question about the funding. Davis doesn't ask for any more resources than any other school. The uniqueness of our partnership is Argonaut engaged the district in a partnership that is Davis. What resources are provided do not necessarily guarantee the success of our students. Argonaut is the champion of the school. The additional resources that are needed for the school are our responsibility. And I think that's important because we're not taking away financial resources or other resources that are already in the district. We're going out and identifying and bringing in resources that would not have otherwise made it to our students. The school is very personal to me. I was not the 4.0 student. I think some of our greatest successes are the 1.0 students. The kids who arrived here, not understanding necessarily, some of them didn't understand what the school is. The family selected it for one reason or another. They had a sibling, they had a friend that enjoyed it, and you have the student that arrives and are held accountable by the other students because they know they have something special. I know this happens at science and medicine. I know this happens at the school art. The other students are as protective of their school culture as any adult or outside organization. And to see the change in behavior amongst students that arrive with one mindset and then end up leaving here successful and passionate about what they're doing and in love with their future career and life path is amazing. But it takes champions. When you have these schools that are, I say smaller, I think that 400 to 500 number for a high school is ideal. And it's not that the district is spending more per pupil there. The school is spending more per pupil. However, the commitment from one of the partners, being the district, is the same as the commitment they have to any other school. I really hope that they can, I hope to, when I first started working with Eric, I'd hope to replicate this model, is find these other schools that need champions. You find a community partner, someone who's not engaged to solve the entire district's problems, but to break the schools into smaller entities and tackle just that focus. And so as a whole bunch of individual successful programs, we are a successful district. And I really think that that's what we can bring. I think we can duplicate it. And, success is long-term. I mean, the one of the biggest troubles in this fundraising world and getting grants is so many of these grants are 1 year, 2 year funding models. Success does take, 4, 8, 12 years to really measure. And it's not metrics coming out of the state. It's long-term success of the students and engagement in the alumni to see how they've changed. I know Tim wants to jump in, so I'm going to slide sideways here.
Yeah. I just wanted to, the question of pulling resources from other schools, I think the question is about, not what schools are entitled to, but what the students in our community are entitled to. And there is no admissions process at Davis. If somebody wants to come here, they can come here. They can come here from out of district. They can come here from inside the district, but we don't turn anyone away. If a family does not want to take advantage, they can go somewhere else, right? So we don't have an exclusive environment where we're preventing anyone from taking advantage here. So I think, when you have, there's no expensive athletics program at Davis. There might be at some other school, but there's not at Davis. There's an aviation program at Davis, right? And I think to Ricardo's point that if you try to take advantage of every possible opportunity available to all of our children in one space, you can't do it all, right? And it would not make sense, or it might not make sense for a comprehensive high school to have access to, 3 professional active ships that operate on Lake Erie, because there wouldn't be the demand and you wouldn't be able to use, to leverage that resource for kids at the scale that would make sense. You might get a few kids out there sometimes. If you have a school that's entirely dedicated to it, you can use it all the time, right? And so for example, we have a simulation lab in our basement with, some high-level flight simulators, and one of them kids can take virtual flight lessons on, and the hours can count towards their private pilot's license training. Well, it doesn't make sense to acquire those resources and to have a simulation lab unless you have a critical number of people who are going to use it. So unless you build a school with a thriving aviation program with, multiple kids, cohort after cohort that want to pursue that, you're going to have a bunch of devices and machines that are left unused, and that's not a good use of resources, right? So if Davis gets a resource, if we get money from the district, if we get money from Argonaut, if we get support from a volunteer, if we get capital equipment, we take advantage of that resource and use it to the most, right? And, the result has been not just, the thematic outcomes, but Davis has some of the strongest OST test scores and one of the highest performance indexes in the city, and about the highest rating, 5-star progress rating. And, all the traditional ways that we measure success of a school, Davis is producing those outcomes as well. So if you think about, are we measuring dollars per kid, or are we measuring dollars per outcome? If we're measuring dollars per outcome, we're actually putting, if there's an extra investment at all in Davis, we're putting it to good use and we're getting return on that investment. And I think the idea that, having students come to Davis somehow makes it harder to learn somewhere else, I'm not sure that that's a valid argument. If a kid wants to come to Davis and learn here, they can. If they don't have to come.
Michelle talked about the alternatives that maybe some wealthier students have. What are the alternatives to these specialty schools if they go away? What happens if they're not here?
Maybe another way, if I might, to frame that is like, what does the district look like if these 3 schools exist, given the declining enrollment, given the resource crunch that the district is under, and that the Building Brighter Futures is kind of trying to address that, among other things? What does the district look like with these 3 schools still in place or not?
I mean, it's very hard to imagine not having the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine be the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine. And so, I mean, I think we really feel, and I mean, our students and our faculty and our board, that, our identity is who we are. So our name, our school culture, our rituals, our criteria, our admissions process, our faculty, our programming, all of those things are, critical components. The history of our school, our alumni. Our board meets 4 times a year. After that, we have 4 committees that also meet 4 to 8 times a year. We host an annual benefit. We do a lot on our own to make sure that our school is successful. And we've really worked hard to protect that environment. And it just wouldn't be the same if it was anything else. I obviously can envision what a comprehensive high school looks like. I've worked in them. I think that our district comprehensive high schools could be better. I think we could offer orchestra in our comprehensive high schools. I think we could maybe offer more sports, although I think we're doing pretty well in those sites. I just don't think that has to be at the expense of specialty programs. I think that we can do both, and we should do both. And there are going to be students who would prefer to be in a comprehensive high school environment, and that's great. But I think it's really critical that we continue to offer opportunities in schools that have already proven to be successful, that have a clear culture and mission. I think taking those opportunities away, it doesn't make any sense, and we would suffer as a district as a result.
We are in our 9th year. At this point, Davis, the high school, and our students have become a cornerstone of the maritime and aviation industries in Cleveland. We are part of the conversation. We are part of the industry now, and our kids are actively participating in it. The depth strategy that we have is working. I'm not aware of any other high school where that's happening at the level of depth that it's happening here. United Airlines is enthusiastic about supporting our school. Interlake is enthusiastic about supporting our school. These partners really see the value and are excited about what's happening. I don't know a different model. I just know that, the way we have it structured now, we are taking advantage of the expertise that Argonaut brings and the industry, not only industry connections, but the industry clout that Argonaut brings. And they're bringing it to our students, and our students are bringing it back to the community. And so, the current model with this partnership and a specific theme means that it's not just class. It's actually happening. Kids are out on the water. They're participating in the actual, world. So again, I'm not sure what it looks like because I don't see any other examples of it working in any other way.
For like an arts program, it's not just a blow to the school community and to the district, but I think there will be a void in the city of Cleveland because of the request for our students to be at, to perform, to support so many different initiatives, from the mayor's office to the unveiling a new permanent display at the international airport for this historic Tuskegee Airmen project that we did. Like, these are major things that the city of Cleveland is tapping into Cleveland School of the Arts, not to mention the alumni base. And you have individuals that have gone on to star in The Lion King for almost 20 years. The students that go to Juilliard from CSA, these are really premier places. And to lose the opportunity to promote that sort of next step after high school is almost unfathomable. When I took the job here at CSA, I literally hopped on an airplane after the interview, landed in Florida with my family for a vacation, and someone in the airports recognized a post and said, "Are you the new principal at Cleveland School of the Arts?" And this is an airport in Florida. So the alumni base that supports, our school, our current students, future students, there would be a huge void to lose a place that has over 40 years of history, not just for Cleveland schools, but for the city of Cleveland itself.
I just wanted to say, the one thing that concerns me is we're seeing a major cut in public education funding. And at a time where we need private sector investment more than ever, creating a larger bureaucratic type institution or redesigning schools so that they look more institutional will not draw that private investment. Private sector is really going to be critical, not only engaging your alumni, but engaging folks who work with us. And I think that that type of money, those folks need to see a return on investment. They need to know that they're not just writing a check that disappears into a larger system. So I think we have to be smarter about spending, and I think that allowing these smaller pockets gets that return that at least we've experienced from our funders and supporters. They feel that this is their quality investment. As Ricardo just mentioned, you see it in the community. We were also involved in the Tuskegee Airmen project at the airport. We've been working on that for years. We didn't have the artistic talent, but we sure had the drive, and our kids understood the Tuskegee Airmen. They went out and helped fundraise and talk to folks about who the Tuskegee Airmen was. These are the other results that I think go outside of industry, that the community sees. They look and see Davis kids, out on the water helping clean. We've had people rescued and lives saved by Davis kids. And I hope someday as you meet your alumni in the airport, you climb onto a plane, the kid says, "I'm also from CMSD. I happen to be flying your plane today." But we are getting there. And I agree. It's just, it's got to be appreciated. And we've got to be smart about funding. Public funding of public education is declining.
Huge topic. Drew, Brian, Michelle, Ricardo, Tim, thanks so much for being part of this conversation. I feel like we just scratched the surface. So thanks to you all.
Thank you. Thanks, James. And thanks, Brian.
Again, appreciate you guys pulling this together. Thank you.
Thank you.